Kuzambo, and welcome to People's Voice. My sincere apologies to all the viewers for not being able to publicize the topic prior to the program. Like we normally do that, but in today's case, we could not send out the topic before we could start the program. The topic for tonight's discussion is: are we framing laws that are implementable? And most of our viewers actually must have watched our Dzongkha session, and from there you can pick it up. And if you wish to contribute to tonight's discussion, we have all our honorable members of parliament here. You can call us and come up with questions, suggestions, or feedbacks, as some of our viewers did during the Dzongkha session. Before I move on, let me introduce my panelists here. I have Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Duptop from National Assembly, and I have Mr. Jigme Rinzin, who is the Member of National Council. I have Mr. Ugendoji, Honorable Member of Parliament, National Assembly, and finally I have Mr. Rinzin, who is the Honorable Member of National Council. I would like to thank all of you, and Mr. Chencho has just joined me here in our studio. I thought Mr. Chencho had left after the Dzongkha session because I couldn't give him enough opportunities to raise his concerns, but thank you for coming. To move on, I would like to send out a subtle reminder to all our viewers and to those who would wish to contribute by calling us and giving us your feedback, suggestions, or throwing questions to the panelists here, is that we would be more interested in knowing about some other laws that have been framed, and not only that, that had some problems in implementation, not just the Tobacco Control Act. There are so many laws or so many acts passed by our parliament within this 5 years term. So if you could focus on other issues as well, apart from the Tobacco Control Act, we'd be more than happy to engage in some other debates as well. Maybe I would start from Mr. Duptopla. Are we framing implementable laws, or do you see a gap between the laws that have been framed and when it comes to actual implementation? That's what some people feel. There's a gap between the two, and because of that, some people are innocently victimized or desirably victimized.
Yes. Thank you, Dawa, for having me here tonight. Our topic is, are we framing implementable laws? It's very relevant to parliamentarians here. The first thing we have to understand here is we have three branches of government. First is legislative, executive, and judiciary. It is the legislative body who will pass the laws to become acts, and it is the executives who will execute, implement the laws. And when there is some kind of differences between, when they execute, if there is some problem, it is the judiciary who will interpret the laws. So now, coming back to legislation, we really do not have direct authority to intervene in during the execution of the laws, be it any laws. But when we frame laws, it is with the best of intention, with best of our research and our objectives to frame laws which are implementable. It is, it is out of question a parliament trying to frame a law which is unimplementable. Of course, it should be implementable, but like I just mentioned, it has to be implemented by the executive body, not by the parliament. So we frame a law, we pass the laws. We have a procedure which I don't have to explain here, the whole procedure of how we pass the laws. But right now, what is important is we have to understand it is the executive who implements the laws. So based on the laws, the executives, the implementers will come up with rules, regulations, bylaws so as to implement. But if there is some kind of difficulty in implementing those laws while they're implementing, then they should come back to the parliament for amendments if there is a need. So that is how the parliament functions. And I would also like to mention here, It is, that during the Dzongkha session, we were discussing more on the Tobacco Act, and then how the majority of the people understood, it was quite harsh from the legislation. It was with the best intention, like I have to say it again, but somehow during the implementation, because the acts, every sections, every clause in the acts were so broad, and without, when it was implemented, immediately without having without having rules. So maybe I think that is the reason why it happened that way. So that's why it came back to the parliament for amendments. So it has come back, and then
So
now
are you saying that the problem was so much with the implementers rather than the ones who are framing the laws?
my opinion would be, I would not say it is the implementers who created the problem, because like the law was so broad, and there was, like they were not ready with the regulations, bylaws based on that law. So when it was implemented, so it was interpreted that way, like as if somebody has to go behind bars with by buying a small quantity of tobacco products. But later, once we came up with all these rules and regulations, and it also came back to the parliament for the second time for amendments. So there again we made it more clear. So we added few more specific mention there. So that's why then the relevant authorities, they were in a position to make much clearer rules and regulations. So I think that's how it's being implemented now.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jimmy Rinzu, laws are framed and passed by the parliamentarians, and it's implemented by a different institution or different agency altogether. And because of that, don't you see there are some problems in between? Because sometimes the laws that are passed by the parliamentarians with the best of intention, as Mr. Duptop mentioned, could be misinterpreted, not so much in the interest of the nation or people at large, but in the interest of some few influential individuals.
Thank you, and good evening. I think the topic on are we meaning are the members of parliament framing laws that are implementable? I would want to slightly differ from the topic itself. It is not only the members of parliament who are singly responsible for framing laws. Actually, members of parliament have much wider scope and mandates beyond framing laws. Actually, as a matter of relevance here, I just want to speak out the broad mandates of members of parliament. By the way, the parliamentarians have, I would consider, under four categories. One is legislation. We legislate law. We not only frame law. That's one difference. Number two is we represent people. We are the representatives of people. So we represent people not only in the parliament, but we represent our people in various forums, in various meetings, in various countries. Number third mandate for members of parliament is to maintain oversight on the executives, on the mechanisms, on the state functionaries. And fourth is, of course, to pass budget, which will eventually materialize whatever are planned by the government, whatever are required for the people. To answer your question, I would want to reiterate, it is not the members of parliament who alone are framing laws. In fact, over the past 4.5 years, in fact almost 5 years of experience, we have all seen the laws framed by relevant ministries, organizations, constitutional organizations, NGOs, and then once the laws are framed, these laws, so-called bill, draft law is called bill by the way, and then this bill gets to Lengge Jungsok, our cabinet, who scrutinize section by section actually, and then after after series of discussions in the Lengge Jungsok, a bill will be then approved for presentation to the parliament, and either house will table it and then pass it, and then of course send it to another house. Now when we discuss in one house, now let me go to the stage where that bills are deliberated in the parliament. Once a bill is been identified as an agenda point for one particular house, it will be delegated to one relevant committee, and then this committee, of course, in the process will have detailed research done, will have detailed discussions with relevant organizations. Even the committee will go to the origin where the bill had originated. So it is not really the MPs who are actually framing laws. Number two, are there a gap between the implementation stage and the framing? In fact, it's been framed by those relevant organizations who are supposed to be implementers. The members of parliament come in between to make it consistent with existing laws, improve it further, do it implementable, do it doable, practical, and then pass it to another house. So of course there can be one or two gaps, so to say, between the implementation and the framing, but as my colleague Honorable Dupto submitted, the eventual objective of parliamentarians is to enact a law which is doable, which is implementable, which is of benefit to the public and the country at large.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ogendoji, if I ask you if our laws framed based on proper research, you'll say yes. But what we need to know is what kind of research you carry on as parliamentarians. Because some might say that you are doing research from internet, and that would confine to what other countries might do it. But what works in some other countries may not necessarily work in Bhutan because of our uniqueness. So in this case, maybe we need to be abreast with the ground realities within ourselves. How are you keeping these ground realities in your mind before you frame certain laws? Because when you implement a law, there are problems at ground level. Sometimes when you pass the laws, certain laws are passed in such a way that it becomes so difficult for the implementers to implement as desired by what is prescribed in the law book.
Yes, thank you, though. I would like to believe that the implementers would have no problem in implementing the law, because in the first place, it is the implementers who initiate the whole process of lawmaking. They draft the bill and they pass it to the parliament. And before they do it, they would have done a comprehensive research on the bill that they are putting to the parliament. So therefore, I would like to believe that any law that is put to the parliament has behind it an exhaustive list of research being done. And having said that, once the bill is introduced to the parliament by the custodian of the bill, then it is up to the members of the parliament to decide whether or not to deliberate on the bill. And after having agreed upon that the bill needs to be discussed because it is in the larger interest of the country and the people, then it is being handed over to a relevant committee. So the committee once again refers the bill with the stakeholders, with the agency that implements the bill, and then after that a number of research is being conducted by the relevant committee. And as far as I know, as far as the procedure in the National Assembly and Council is concerned, we have deliberated this in the Dzongkha session as well. We go into a number of research activities in between before the bill is being introduced to the third reading in the parliament in the House. So therefore, as long as we are concerned, we are making a good beginning, and our committees are undertaking comprehensive research on the bill that's being introduced to the parliament. And one thing that I would like to mention is that the bills, if it is too stringent, people refer to it, people see it as it is kind of a draconian. And if it is too liberal, then it is there for everybody to exploit. So sometimes it's very difficult for the parliament to come up with an exactly appropriate bill which suits the needs of everybody.
Okay. Mr. Rinzin, now one concern that was raised in most of my shows when it comes to a discussion on some laws is mainly the concern that people were not actually represented quite well while the discussions take place in the parliament. That is, especially in the case of Tropical Control Act. Many have raised voice saying that we have never been consulted. Do you see a need to consult everybody in this country and get their consensus to come up with the law? Or what you have discussed is based on the views that have been expressed by people at large?
Thank you, Dawa. It is very important to get everybody on board while framing any law or policy law. But there are practical problems. It is not possible that me as a representative of Lindsay goes to every Kurtevs to discuss about certain issues. It's practically impossible. But we always consult them as and when we get time. we do, maybe it's not enough. We have to do more, but then there are practical problems, as I was saying. Now, say like a law is supposed to be passed, or a law has already been passed. Now, I go to Linchi to educate everybody or get their concerns on this law. It will take me ages. It's practically not problem. Practically, there is a big problem here. And like my colleagues here mentioned, people are being, the stakeholders are being sections of stakeholders. Everybody cannot be taken on board because of practical problems. But even during the initial process of drafting a bill, the concerned agencies, concerned sections of societies are being consulted. And then later when the bill reaches the parliament, again we do laborious consultations. Sometimes we even post certain bills on our website. Of course now, sorry, most farmers can't go on the internet. But we noticed, for instance, the only private members bill that saw through at least one house was the national flag bill, whereby I was one of the drafters. That we posted on the NC website and announced that it is available for comments. But we did not receive one comment. Most Bhutanese don't read. A lot of Bhutanese complain, but then if I specifically ask somebody, okay, which section of which law is not implementable, I have big doubt that maybe there cannot be answers. Of course, of course, some sections may not be implementable as of now because of lack of maybe manpower, expertise with the implementers, or lack of budget. But then when we frame laws, we frame them so broadly so that these laws can be applied, if not immediately, even at later stage, and that is acceptable in legislation. And then the legislative procedures always permits amendments. As time goes on, circumstances change. The way people live, especially the economic development, and even there are changes even in culture, in society, various changes. So that will, at such a stage, certain policies and laws need to be changed. This is why lawmaking is a very dynamic process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kezawangdi, our first caller. Mr. Kezawangdi, since you are the first caller, what do you have for us?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
And good evening to everybody. In fact, the viewers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question here is, okay, the laws are made collectively. Okay. And it is being passed in the assembly, then in the upper house.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, is there anybody who is specialized in law in the upper house to really study the law and pass it? Or is it that they just make it logistic and then pass it out?
Okay. Is that it,
One.
sir?
Two, I'm talking about the jammis. Now, supposing I am a civil servant, I have to fight the case in a court, and I hire a jammi. All right. Now, the jammi really prolongs the case because he really gets paid well. Even the timpin or the trungpin, now you call it, he tells certain things to be told to the first party. Second, since he is the second party and he can reap the benefit from there, so he really wants to prolong the law. Are the lawmakers trying to do something to eliminate all this and shorten the law? One. And third thing, the third thing is the law. Supposing I have a dispute, then I approached the Tilpe with certain maybe the favorism or whatever. I know the Tilpe. Okay. Now the thing is passed in my favor.
Okay, sir. Go
Now
ahead.
the opponent I have is not satisfied because he has own reasons. Okay. Now we appeal on in the Supreme Court or somewhere else, but the Supreme Court also quotes the same law and pass in favor of me. And it is quite ridiculous to know all this happening in the small country, a handful of people. So I think there should be something done with it.
Okay, Mr. Kezang, is that it? I think we got all your questions, all three questions, and I think we also need to have enough time for our
Thank you so
panelists
much,
to
yeah.
answer. Thank you so much. This is actually Mr. Kezang from Wangdil. I said Mr. Kezang only, sorry for that. Mr. Jingmurin, three questions, and two actually would have specifically gone to judiciary, but if you have any expertise on this, you can answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Kezang from Wangdi. First question I noted was he was asking if there is any specialist in passing laws, expert specialist in National
the
Council,
Yes,
Upper House. He was referring to Upper House. I think specialists will, the understanding on term specialist will come with the subject on what the bill is all about. If it's about Road Act, for instance, specialists will be something to do with roads and the people's expectations in the villages. So how do you pass law? It's an area I think one he has doubt on. It's we pass laws through deliberations, through discussions, through asking questions, through meetings, and these are the basic procedures. And then number two, he was saying, Mr. Kezang submitted Jabmi trying to deliberately prolong time for, I don't know, so for some extra fee. I think this is all about judicial process and adjudication of cases by the judiciary. As Honorable Dr. earlier mentioned, we have three arms of state, by the way, the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. These are three independent arms which should not encourage each other. We are the legislators, we will only legislate laws and then pass, and it's up to the judiciary how to really implement the laws. So and then
And it could be never your intention to prolong cases or laws like this when you frame laws, right?
Exactly. And then to further make it clear, we have a Civil and Criminal Procedures Code of Bhutan 2001, which has details of how the cases will be prosecuted by our justices.
Yes.
I think they're doing fair enough here. And then wherever somebody assumes that there's a Jabmi trying to prolong time, I think it's the prerogative of the sitting judge to really decide how he or she is doing it. It's a personal matter, it's an individual case which we cannot really comment, I'm afraid, just now. And then third one was eliminating or shortening law. As you said, the members of parliament have never an intention to really prolong or shorten for that matter. It's a law which is for the benefit of the people. So long as it's going to be of benefit to the people, whether it is prolonging or shortening, it will not really matter, and that it will not be, the legislators should not be really influenced by this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other views on this, Mr. Druftop? And then I'll come to Mr. Chencho here.
Thank you again. Just to supplement my colleague here, for need of specialist or expert in the houses, be it at National Council or at National Assembly. Like my colleagues already mentioned here, the draft bill, which, before it is called bill, the bill comes from the relevant stakeholders, like agencies. So there already they are being, thoroughly researched, studied by the expertise. Then it comes to the houses for further, we have process of how the bill should be passed to become an act. So, but still, we have lots of procedures there, committees like my colleagues has mentioned. So there, I think we should understand, even if the legislators, the parliamentarians are not expert in that particular field, but still, that the draft is being made by the expertise, one thing. And the second one, Jabmi prolonging, I think my friend here mentioned very clearly, we will follow the civil and criminal procedure of Bhutan. There, I think it should go follow the due process of law. As a legislator, as a parliamentarian, we really cannot. Of course, we can amend if there is really a big room for such such things to happen. If there's a big room in the civil and criminal procedure, but we can amend it, and then if there's a big room, of course we can do that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Vichencho, before I come to you, we have a caller waiting. Let me take that call and then come back to you. Mr. Gelson from Thimphu. Hello, sir. Mr. Gelson, if you hear us, we would like to hear from you. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Gelson, please go ahead with whatever you would like to submit.
Hello.
No. Okay, we are facing some problems with our telephone communications. Let me give this opportunity to Sancho, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Regarding the law, actually, we are very, very fortunate to have our first parliamentary government to come into power, and we have all the far-sighted deputy government. At the same time, we have NC, the House of Review, who is doing their job, and the law is made. Actually, we should know that the law is made. We have a lot of different stages. The bill first, it is issued, whether it's a private bill or it's a public bill. It is issued by presented in the NA by the minister, and after that it is screened and it is put in the committee. There are a lot of committees. So after only that, at last, and then it will go for our king's assent. So I think the laws which are made till now, it is really good, and we are very fortunate, to be frank, that the present government or the House of Review, they are doing their job.
So, Levicencio, you find no problems with whatever laws framed so far?
Maybe there are
They're all implementable.
Maybe there are some loopholes, but I could say that 70% to 80% of the laws are great, and it is really benefiting the citizens of Pelindupala.
Okay, thank you so much. That would be, I think this comment will go along very well with all the members of the panel here. We have a caller online. Okay, no callers online. Okay, maybe Mr. Ugendoji, while talking about framing laws that are implementable, we have had discussions in our Dzongkha session that our people are not actually involved because honorable members of parliament do not have enough time to visit the constituencies, talk to people in your own constituencies, and then get their feedbacks on board. This is one of the complaints that we have had. If you are to react to this, and it will be quite a surprise to note that even at the end of the term, if some of our honorable members of parliament have not been to their constituencies to discuss people of their constituencies.
Yes, it is practically not possible to consult everybody when we deliberate on a certain bill, simply because sometimes the bill happen to be introduced during a time when we are sitting here and not visiting our constituency. But having said that, the form of the government here is the democracy is that of a majoritarian, where people elect a representative to the parliament, and that representative is supposed to represent the people who elect them, and therefore he or she has the power and the responsibility to represent the people. So therefore, to a certain extent, it is taken for granted that a representative, a member of parliament, represent the view of the people. But we also have a procedure, because now we have a layer of the governments. We have the central government, then we have the district government, then we have the local government. At the local level, we have the Gyeok Sokde. Then from the Gyeok Sokde, we have the Dzongkha Sokdu, and then it comes to the parliament. So when we say we don't consult people, it is not really right, because at the Gyog level there are Chokpas, there are Mangmis, and then Gubs. So whenever we have a parliament session, before we begin with the parliament session, we send out, the speaker and the chairperson sends out a notification to all the local government authorities saying that at a certain time from now, the parliament will convene, and therefore if you have agenda from the local government, then please send it to the parliament. And based on the notification, the local government are supposed to consult the people. The Chokpas will consult the peoples in the Chiok, and then the people's view will be discussed or deliberated in the Gyok Chokdela.
Yes.
And the Gyok Chokde's decision will come to the Dzongkha Chokdu, and the Dzongkha Chokdu will onward forward the matter to the agendas to the parliament. So that is how the normal procedure is, and therefore I would like to think that it is democratically right, and then everybody's view to a large extent is being represented.
Okay. Thank you. We have a caller from Wangdi again. Hello.
La. Hello. La.
Okay, sir, please go ahead.
First of all, good evening to all the panelists, Mr. Dawa and Mr. Tengcho there.
Good evening, sir.
I would like to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
In general, like we have rules and regulations, we have laws implemented, framed by the ex-parties. But my doubt is, are we really taking care of it? Is
Yes.
there anybody following it?
Yes.
Because I'm very sorry to mention, but in the 2nd February, what we have seen in the Kunsel is the Home Minister has answered to the ECC question about the girl pushing case, that he has said he has allotted a land to a lady who is a wife of an engineer there as a
Well, Mr. Tille,
la.
we would appreciate you quoting examples and trying to make the discussion more comprehensive. But I'm afraid that since we do not have Honorable Home Minister here to answer this question, if you could skip on the example and maybe cite some examples relevant to the Honorable members.
Okay. So now I want to say here is, say for example, if Mr. A has allotted a land to Mr. B, saying that Mr. C has done a good job to the department. So Mr. B is the wife of Mr. C. So the Mr. A, the competent authority, says that since Mr. D has done a good job to the department, so Mr. B, being a wife of Mr. D, so Mr. A has allotted land to Mr. D, who is a housewife.
So the bottom line is?
The bottom line is it allowed? Because the rule does not say that. Hello?
You're saying that there are some problems when it comes to implementation of some laws, right?
Yes,
sir?
yes. Because there are many people who frame, who.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Okay. We are also facing some problems with the network. Mr. Tille, are you still there? Hello, Mr. Tille. Okay. Some viewers might think that we have deliberately cut the lines, but this is not the case. Let me be very honest here. We did face some network problems. Let me put this to Mr. Rinzirin. It was in fact more confusing during the second A and B, all these equations that confused us. But pointed out that definitely some problems when it comes to some high profile individuals. Would you agree to this?
Thank you, Mr. Tinda. I appreciate the query. Bhutan, like any other country, is not Sukhabati. Everybody wants to create a perfect world, but we must all understand that there are always rotten apples in a group of fresh apples. There could be, much as we would like to convert Bhutan into Sukhabati, Dewachengi Shingham, we all aim at that, but it is not possible. Therefore, I would agree that maybe while everybody is equal in the eyes of law, while law is for everybody, and everybody must be treated equally under the nation's law, during implementation, I'm sorry to hear that there are problems. As a lawmaker, all I can say is, when we make laws, when we pass laws from the parliament, we do with the hope that it will be implemented the way it must be implemented. If the implementers are not implementing the laws properly, then they should be ashamed of themselves.
Don't you also believe, or don't you also think that those affected individuals should try and reach out to the relevant authorities, saying these are the problems while implementing certain laws, and this is how this law has been implemented by the agency, which should not be the case. But our people do not actually speak up. Do you think that's a problem?
And people getting victimized and then keeping quiet, that helps nobody. It doesn't help the system. It doesn't help the individual himself or herself. They must come out. They must report to the relevant authority. If there is a corruption, then we all know that ACC is there. ACC is doing a perfect job, working very hard to curb corruption in our country. They should report the case to ACC. Otherwise, if the corruption is from judiciary, they should appeal to higher authorities in the judiciary itself, like the High Court or the Supreme Court. That's all I can say. And in the case of the example, the confusing example, now taking cue from the AB stuff, all I can say as a legislator is, if certain portion of a land has been given to somebody just like a kidu, then I would say granting of land kidu is the prerogative of His Majesty alone. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Okay. We have another caller online, Mr. Tashidoji from Thimpul. Hello, Mr. Tashidoji. Mr. Tashidoji, are you there?
Yes, La.
Okay, please go ahead.
Well, pardon?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask that in order to make the act or laws implementable, I thought, of course, most of the laws are drafted by the concerned department or concerned agency, whether it is within the ministry or whether it is the autonomous body.
Yes.
Of course, the executing agency, while drafting, I think they know best how implementable the act would be. But I just doubt whether the head of this agency or any relevant officer is given the opportunity in the parliament to give their rationale as to why this section has to be like this and like that. As of now, I did not see anything like that. But if that could be, of course, the decision of the parliament would prevail. But if the agency concerned is given the opportunity to speak their rationale as to why this section is put in there, I think that would solve the problem. That's what I think.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your question. Almost all of you are raising your hands. Maybe let me first go to Mr. Jigmeranjan. Do you involve head of the agencies and listen to them?
Thank you. Yes, we do. We do involve the head of the agencies. We do involve the head of the agency authoring the bill, where the bills originated. In fact, we are not only giving chance to head of the agency, but I think all the meetings are attended by the relevant, not only the head, but the entire team from that agency, from that ministry. And even in the Parliament House, for instance, I will quote the Road Act, which we are deliberating just now. It will be passed by the end of this session. Road Act has originated from Ministry of Works and Human Settlement. Before it is tabled in the Parliament, the National Council had that there is a committee dedicated to this particular act, particular bill, and then there had been series of meetings with the Minister of Works and Human Settlement officials. In the Parliament House, His Excellency Honorable Shabtul Lembo physically presented the bill to the House, justifying and explaining the backgrounds and requirements. There, the honourable members were asked wherever doubts we have, and it was clarified. So, in nutshell, yes, we do involve head of the agencies, and they are given a fair chance. Nothing is done once they have submitted the bill to the House. I'll take 1 or 2 minutes. That time I said Civil and Criminal Procedure Code of Bhutan 2001, I think it's 2004, let me correct. And then one thing is, all along we have been discussing about are we doing enough consultation before passing bills, with particular reference to the Tobacco Act, Tobacco Control Act. As a matter of fact, I represent Pemagas of Dzongkha with 11 Gyeoks and with 3 constituencies in the National Assembly. I did consultations not on household basis but on local Zomdu basis. And many of my people from my Dzongkha actually wanted total ban on tobacco. However, I had to apprise as much as I would want to join them to ban the tobacco in totality. As a matter of fundamental rights, we have to have some leeway and then negotiate it at a certain level, and that's how I had contributed my submission to the House. Yes. So I want to apprise that public consultation before passing the bill, during the process of deliberating the bill, are consulted with the public.
Yes, thank you. I think Levitinel's question had some comprehensive answer from Mr. Jigme Ranjan, and in the interest of time, I think I'll not let others supplement to this. Mr. Duptop, one question. Conflict of interest while discussing some bills in the Parliament. For instance, today when you talk about Tobacco Control Act, some people say that the debate or deliberation was so much between smokers and non-smokers. What do you think?
Coming back to Tobacco Act, conflict of interest, like I mentioned that time. Yes, there are smokers in the Parliament. A few parliamentarians, they smoke. But ultimately, what is important is the intent of the act. They should not personalize themselves while deliberating on an act.
But some people thought they are personalizing it.
No, that should not happen, and that will not happen.
Yes, sir.
But what is important here is the intent, the purpose of that act. Because the purpose of this act is very clear. It is not trying to personalize anybody else. It is for the interest of the nation. It is in the interest of the whole country. It's not for a single individual. So that has to be very clear. So even I would say, when we passed the Tobacco Act, if it was really harsh, and many of our friends must have voted no against it, but only a single MP voted no against that Tobacco Act. So which means I don't think we should doubt that parliamentarians were there was some conflict of interest there. So that's what if I can take 2 more minutes. I was thinking when our colleague mentioned about the people has to actually be has to contribute in implementation of the act. I think a good example could be Tenancy Act. So I think I've been hearing that we have lots of problems, especially in Thimphu, where people are complaining that the landlords are doing.
This is one act we should have discussed more than the Tobacco Act.
We have act. We have act.
But unfortunately, we are running short of time.
I'm so sorry, but let me make it very short here. I think it is very relevant here. The people should be there. Act is there. The government or the authorities won't go to every individual. Are you being harassed by the house owners? Because there is laws. The people has to be educated. They should know that there are laws, and they should go ahead and then implement together. We cannot just tell the implementers that you have not implemented. That's why we are not able to do it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ugendoji, your final comments.
Well, actually, I don't have much of a comment because it's been taken care of by my colleagues. The conflict of interest is quite interesting because I thought the conflict of interest is as of today. We never had this situation in our house, in the National Assembly. We had smokers, we had non-smokers, but even the smokers they actually contributed positive contribution to the topic of Control Act.
Yes.
And therefore, there was no question of the control of, the conflict of interest here. And lastly, we have also raised the question of whether, the acts are being implemented, fairly and justly. When it comes to the implementation, it is the executive branch or the agencies who are responsible for implementing, and therefore we have a limited hand. Legislators have limited hand in the implementation of the acts, and therefore the message I would like to send out is that, for example, Honorable Deputy quoted the Tenancy Act, which is not being implemented properly. So we cannot really blame the government for not implementing, because the tenants are remaining quiet when the landlords jack up the price of the rent unduly before time. So therefore, the implementation has to be in a concerted effort, both from the people
Yes,
and from the implementer side.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Rinzin, maybe 1 minute for you to have any final say.
I'd just like to again reiterate and emphasize that laws are made for the welfare of the people, for the security, sovereignty of the country. Laws are, everybody is equal in the eyes of the laws. But if there are problems in implementation of certain laws, the parliament must be notified. People must voice out and let us know where the problem is. Because laws are amendable. The parliament has the power to amend any law anytime we want. Another request is, if injustices are being felt by certain people while in the process of implementing laws, people should not shy away. They must come forward and report such injustices.
Yes, sir.
This is the only way we can have a clean society. This is the only way laws will benefit the people.
Yes.
Otherwise, we will all go down the drains if we shy away from our own responsibilities and duties. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you so much. We are all equally responsible for a successful implementation of any law or a failure of implementing any laws. On this note, I'd like to end this program tonight. Thank you so much for watching People's Voice. Until next Sunday, where we would also bring in another issue. And that time, I promise you, I bet you that we will definitely publicize the topic before the discussion, so that we could have more people here in the audience as well. Thank you so much for watching People's Voice. It's time to say good night.